Good morning, my name's Marta and I am part of the leadership team at Christ the Rock Church in Yates. Today is Good Friday and I just wanted to take a few moments to reflect on a part of the Easter story that can sometimes feel a bit difficult and a bit uncomfortable. That is the moment when God seems silent. Our reading this morning comes from Matthew chapter 27, verse 45 to 50. From noon until 3 p.m, darkness came over all the land. About 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing there heard this, they said, "He's calling Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. I think sometimes we can read past this part in the story very quickly because we know what's coming. We know Sunday's on its way. We know the resurrection is coming. We know how the story ends. But I always just think the disciples didn't know that. For them, this wasn't just a 3-day pause. This was the collapse of absolutely everything. They'd given up their entire lives to follow Jesus. They'd seen miracles, they'd seen blind eyes opened, the dead raised, storms stilled with a word. They'd listened to him teach in ways that turned everything upside down, and somehow it all made sense. They believed so deeply that he was the Messiah, the one they'd been waiting for. Their hope was not just some sort of casual thing, it was costly. They gave up their whole lives for this. And then, Good Friday. Darkness, death, silence. Can you actually imagine it? Like the confusion, the grief, the questions that must have just flooded their minds. Was he really who he said he was? Did we all just get it wrong? Have we given up everything for absolutely nothing? I just think it must have felt like the biggest gut punch, like the ground beneath them just completely gave way. And what's really striking is that in that moment, even Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That's the Son of God. That's the Son of God experiencing the weight of God's silence. And I think if we're honest, we've all had moments a bit like that in our faith journey. Maybe not on a cross with the crucifixion, but in seasons of our life. There's seasons where we walk so closely with God, where everything feels really clear, where prayer lives are alive and really seeming to flow, and our faith feels strong, and we can see God's hand moving in our lives and in our circumstances. And then suddenly, something can just shift. Your prayers start to feel like they are hitting the ceiling. Your direction becomes less clear, and that peace that you once had feels more distant. And we can find ourselves asking, God, where are you? Can I still trust you? Are you who I thought you were? It's in those moments, those Good Friday moments of our lives, that faith can feel the hardest. Because it's one thing to trust God when you can see him moving, when you can hear him clearly. And it's another thing entirely to trust him when he feels silent. But I really want to encourage you today. Silence does not mean absence. Silence definitely doesn't mean abandonment. Although the disciples couldn't see it, God was not inactive on that Friday. Something was happening beneath the surface. something eternal, something that was about to change absolutely everything. And that is true for us too. When God feels silent, he's not gone. When you can't see the way forward, it doesn't mean that there isn't a way forward. When your circumstances make absolutely no sense, it doesn't mean that God's lost all control. And sometimes God does his deepest work in the darkest places. And sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the quiet beginning of resurrection. And that is just really exciting. If you're in a time in your life where you feel buried in the dark, maybe you've been planted and you are about to grow and bloom. Maybe resurrection is coming. So, okay, what do we do in those moments? In those moments of feeling really far from God, in those moments of feeling really pretty hopeless, we hold on. We hold on to what we know is true, even when we can't feel it. We remember his faithfulness in the past. Just keep reminding yourself of all the times you've seen God be faithful. And then we anchor ourselves in his promises. And sometimes you have to choose literally minute by minute to just trust him anyway. And that's not because it feels easy, but it's because he is still so worthy. And maybe today, this Good Friday, your faith doesn't feel very strong. That's okay, because even a whisper of trust is still trust. Even faith as tiny as a mustard seed is still faith. Just showing up is still faith. Even showing up and saying, God, I don't understand, but I'm still here, is so powerful. Because Sunday is coming. It may feel like Friday now, but resurrection is never off the table with God. There's a song that I absolutely love by Elevation Worship. It's called Rattle. And it says, Saturday was silent, surely it was through. But since when has impossible ever stopped you? Friday's disappointment is Sunday's empty tomb. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? So if you're in a season where he feels distant, don't walk away. Lean in, stay, trust that the God who seemed silent is still writing a story that you just can't see right now. And when he moves again, and he will, you'll realize that he was there all along. Have a wonderful Easter.